Here's our guest speaker, all the way from Vietnam.
Thank you, Christoph, and thanks for inviting me. It's a real honor to be here today. I was at home in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, or Saigon, as people still casually call it, a couple of months ago, and I received an email from Christoph, and it said, Dave, do you have any plans to be in Salt Lake City in February? And I said, well, I've never lived in Salt Lake City. I don't have family there. You're my only friends there. Well, why do you ask? And he said, well, we have this conference, and we're wondering if you would like to come speak at it. And so it's really an honor to be here today and to have come from the warm, sunny, 90-degree climate of Saigon into the chilly, cold, dry weather of Salt Lake City. Travel is not always comfortable. And sometimes it is the early moments of our journeys that are the least comfortable moments. But we endure those moments of discomfort because we know what's coming. We know that we are about to step into a whole new world of wonder if we can just survive the plane ride. And so I'm always very excited when I am on my way to the airport, ready to catch a long series of flights across an ocean. And it might be 5 o'clock in the morning, and I've been up packing until 1:30 or 2, and my body is exhausted, but I just feel this buzz of energy because I know how much my life is going to transform over the next 28 hours. As I'm getting ready to take off, as my plane is taxiing, I always stop to think about how fortunate I am that I was born into a situation where I can travel like this, where I can fling my body halfway around the world in a day. I also feel very fortunate that I was born travel-sized. That I have never grown taller than 5 feet 3.5 inches. And I look at the 6 feet tall people on the plane and I think, oh yeah, it could be worse. But I make my flights and I cross my ocean and I finally arrive at my destination and I step out into the exotic new world of Salt Lake City, Utah. I had a bit of a problem a couple of days ago. My computer had a meltdown. The space bar and the delete key and the quote key all stopped working, which is a problem when you're a travel writer. It's very hard to write an article when you can't use your space bar or your delete key. And so I took it to a computer repair shop, and I went into the shop, and I asked this guy if he knew maybe could fix it. It wasn't defective keys. It was like an internal computer issue. And he said, well, yeah, I could run some diagnostics on it, but it's going to take me a week. And I said, oh, that's not going to work for me. I live in another country, and I'm going to be leaving and going home on Sunday. He said, oh, where do you live? And I said, I live in Vietnam. He said, oh, I hear it's really cool over in that Europe-Asia area. I have family in Switzerland. Dude, you work at a computer store. Have you never looked at Google Maps before? Anyway, we are all here today because we are all curious people. We all are interested in traveling. And we can carry that curiosity with us every single day of our lives. And we can always be looking for new adventures and new experiences, whether we are on the other side of the planet, on a new continent, or whether we are just wandering around our own neighborhood. Now, my first trip abroad, my very first international travel experience, happened when I was quite young. When I was 7 years old, my parents told me and my little brother Steve one night that they had a big surprise for us. But there was one condition before they would tell us the big surprise. We had to clean our plates. We had to finish our dinner. This was a problem for me. I was a very picky eater as a child. But I somehow got through dinner that night, and my father finally told me what the big surprise is. He said, how would you boys like to move to England for a year? There was one thing that my parents never warned me about. In all the preparations that they tried to do, there's one thing they didn't tell me, and that was that every single person in the city of London was either a butler or a nanny. See, I had watched lots of cartoons in my day, and the only people who spoke like that were butlers or nannies. That's what I had learned. Everything and everyone around me seemed so different, and it didn't occur to me at the time that I was the one who was different. And we do this as adults as well. It's a trick that our mind plays on us. We arrive in a new place and we think of everything around us as foreign. We think of everybody around us as different and strange. And actually what we are seeing is totally normal in that place. We are the weirdos. We are the ones who are the foreigners. And it's important to keep that in mind when we go into new places, that we are looking at things through our rose-colored glasses or whatever, and it's everything that's happening around us is completely normal life in the place we have just arrived. So we go to new countries and we have to deal with and we have to adjust to all kinds of things. It might be foreign foods that are unfamiliar, it might be a different language or a different accent, foreign currencies. Many of you have probably encountered before the international toilet of mystery that you can't figure out how to flush. Do you push a button? Do you pull a cord? Do you kick it? We can't figure that out, and we feel a little bit lost. Well, one thing that my parents had to learn during our year in England was how to drive on what we in America like to call the wrong side of the road. We got through the year without them causing a single traffic fatality. The guy on the motorbike made a full recovery. Now, the motorcycle accident was not my mother's fault. Here's what happened. We had this it was 1977, and we had this bright orange station wagon that came with the house we were renting, and it had the front seats and the back seats, and then a fuzzy black slab in the very back that was really designed to carry cargo or sheepdogs. And my brother Steve and I, we loved to sit back there. We called it the way back. And so we were in the way back one afternoon. We were going to the grocery store to get some food for dinner. And I remember looking out the back window of the car, and I saw this guy in a leather jacket on a motorcycle, and he was driving up, and he was driving quite aggressively, and he was trying to pass us. Now, when you drive on the left, you are supposed to pass on the right. But he was trying to pass us illegally. He was trying to pass us on the left-hand side between our car and the sidewalk. And he came up, and he tried, and then he pulled back. And then he tried again, and he pulled back. And then he went for it, and he banged into the sidewalk, and then he banged into the side of our car, and I still remember the sound of the thud, and he went rolling onto the pavement, and my mother, of course, was horrified and terrified, and she thought that she had caused this, and she stopped the car, and I half shouted, half whispered to her from the way back, "Hey, Mom, drive away before anyone notices." Now, that might have been good advice, because here's the problem. If you get in an automobile accident in a foreign country, everybody assumes it's your fault. Well, an ambulance was called, and the ambulance was on its way, and on the drive to our accident, the ambulance got in an accident of its own, which shattered the front windshield, and it came roaring up to the scene of our accident, and the whole front windscreen had thousands of little shards of shatterproof glass still in the frame, and the driver of the ambulance was craning his neck out the side window, because he couldn't see through the front windshield. And he came up with a siren blaring, those two-tone sirens like you hear in the movies. And he parked nose to nose in front of our car. And then I heard a woman, she came up and she said to another woman, "Wait, she hit the motorbike and the ambulance? How did she manage to hit the ambulance?" The other woman said, "Well, have you listened to the way she talks?" First woman said, "Oh, she's American, is she? I hear they drive on the wrong side of the road in America." I realized later on that sometimes the lines that delineate culture are not only along geographic lines, they're not only along political boundaries. We all exist in different cultures and subcultures, and we can cross over into other cultures, but we have so many different things that make up who we are and where our comfort zones lie, and where we maybe don't understand or don't connect with or don't relate to certain subcultures. And these lines can be determined by languages, by politics, by religion, by socioeconomic class, by gender and sexual identity and our attitudes about those things, by body size. And yes, there is a short man's culture. I once had a tour member say to me, "Dave, you don't act short." What does that mean? It's like saying you don't act blonde. Tanya, hi, sorry. And then there are things like our hobbies and the sports we play or watch or the music we listen to. There are cultural elements attached to those things as well. And when we are in those elements, when we are with people who get those cultures and connect with them, then we are in our own group. But this is my point to all of this. It is so easy for us to be traveling in a sense, even when we are at home, if we pursue our curiosity, and if we go out and we get to know people who are different from us. You can go in your own neighborhood and you can find people who maybe you don't understand, maybe you don't agree with, or you think you don't agree with, and you can go just have a chat with them, learn from them. And, at the end of the day, you might go home saying, okay, well, that was interesting, but it's not for me, and that's okay. But at least you learn from them and you connect with them. And I think that's really important. And that's part of the magic of travel, of course, when we go, to faraway places and foreign countries, but we can do this close to home as well. Well, I, of course, had some preconceptions of Vietnam. I was born in 1968 in the last years of the war, and I don't have very clear memories of what was going on with the war, but I do remember the aftermath. And my image of Vietnam growing up was that it was a dangerous country where Americans were not welcome. And so I was a little bit nervous when we got off the plane, and we arrived at midnight. And I woke up in the morning, and I remember looking out my hotel window and going, that's Vietnam out there. And it was really difficult for me to fathom, and I was nervous just stepping out the front door of my hotel. Well, within minutes, I became just mesmerized and enchanted by the energy in Saigon. The first thing I noticed, the first thing that many people notice when they go there, and this is a little bit of a travel writer's cliche. Every guidebook will mention this, but it was the motorbikes. The traffic there is unbelievable. It looks almost like a clown car circus act or something. And back in 2008, there were not as many traffic lights in Saigon as there are today. And so people would come to intersections, and nobody would stop. They'd just all weave around each other. It was like those nature videos you watch where schools of fish, thousands of them, are swarming, but they never bump into each other. And nobody really understands how they do this, but they make it work somehow. Within 20 or 30 minutes, I was going, this is one of the coolest places I've ever been. And this is not at all what I had expected. Well, that night, Katina and I were out. We made our way across the street. Now, crossing the street in Saigon is also an adventure. You just kind of start walking and you go for it. And the motorbikes will go around you just like they're going around each other. But we got to the other side of the street and we came to a park. And all of a sudden, we were the only foreigners in the park. On one side of the street were all the tourists. On the other side of the street, we had just stepped into the real Saigon and we saw families out, there were people out strolling and teens flirting with each other and people playing badminton or playing this other game that we had seen, which was a little bit like hacky sack, where they're kicking this thing back and forth to each other. And Katina said, do you want to just sit down on this ledge and hang out for a little while? I said, yeah, that sounds great. And within a couple of minutes, we had about 15 young Vietnamese people from about age 16 to 25, 26 gathered around us sitting cross-legged on the floor while we sat on this low-lying wall, and we ended up teaching an impromptu English class in a park at 9:30 at night on our first night in Saigon. So you never know what's going to happen when you get a little curious and when you cross the road, literally or figuratively, and you get a little bit away from the tourist center, and sometimes you don't have to go very far. A block or two can really change your world. Well, by day 4 of our first trip there, I was already writing in my journal that I thought I might like to live there one day. And at that time, it seemed like a crazy fantasy. But 7 years later, it happened. We moved to Ho Chi Minh City almost 2 years ago. And I just want to show you, 1 month ago, I'm very proud of this, 1 month ago, I finally got one of these. This is my Vietnamese motorbike license. You can clap. No. I never in a million years would have imagined that this 1 week trip was going to radically alter my life. And right now there is nowhere else in the world that I would rather be living than Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. When we think about American-Vietnamese relations just a few decades ago, this is really a remarkable thing. And people often ask me, what's it like there today? How are you treated as an American? And I've traveled extensively throughout the country, and in 7 years of frequent visits and 2 years of living there, never once have I encountered any animosity as an American. And that's not what I expected. And I had to go there to learn this, and I had to go there to find my new happy place. And every day for me now is an adventure. I see something crazy and wonderful out on the street every single day. So travel can be uncomfortable at times, and pursuing your curiosity can be uncomfortable. But when we we build up the courage to pursue our curiosity, and sometimes it does take courage to step outside of our comfort zones, we can experience wonderful, life-changing things, whether we are exploring other cultures around the world or around our neighborhood. Just to reiterate, I want to encourage all of you to get out there and explore the world. When you pursue your curiosity, you never know where it's going to bring you, but it can bring you into wonderful, wonderful places. And thank you all very much.
That's great.